marine ecologist specializing in movement ecology and spatial data applications for conservation. As a science officer at IMOS, he supports Australia's national telemetry network, helping to strengthen biodiversity monitoring and conservation planning. We're looking forward to his perspective on how national scale tracking systems like IMOS can contribute to conservation impact and what lessons can be applied globally. Take it away, Yuri.
Thank you, Tali. Well, I was gonna say good morning, but it's just good morning for me, isn't it? Yeah, thanks for the first talk there, John. I could pretty much summarize my talk here, say that everything that John said at the global scale, we do that here in Australia, but at the country level scale, right, at IMOS. It's actually interesting because when IMOS was first put together, that was actually back 2008 as well when OTN was starting. And it's funny because I was just like a young undergrad on my first year at uni, knowing nothing about life or biology at all. And it's funny to be here like part of this very big network of yeah, a lot of engaging people leading like some cutting edge technology and research. So we are the IMOS, the Integrated Marine Observing System. Before I start, I just would like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians and elders of the land and sea on which we work and observe and recognize the unique connection to the land and sea. We at IMOS, we pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples past and present. Okay, so why was IMOS established? So oceans matter to Australia as a blue economy. Australia is like this country, but it's really like a continent on itself, right? For like national safety, sovereignty, and security. It's also very important for energy security, food security, biodiversity conservation. There's a lot of like coastal populations all around Australia. Australia is covered by just like two big oceans, but also like encompasses Antarctica. A lot of research done down in Antarctica as well. It's also very important in terms of climate change, variability, extremes here, especially on the east coast of Australia. We're located at this hot spot for climate change. Like the rate that the oceans are warming here on the east coast of Australia is one of the greatest in the world. And it's also very important for resource allocation. So historically, before IMOS was created, Australia's marine observing was very uncoordinated, had very poor coverage, and was very fragmented and not sustained. So the idea of IMOS is actually having this centralized entity that coordinates the observations done all around Australia. And yeah, IMOS was established back in 2006, 2007 to address all of these problems. So animal tracking is really just one of the components of IMOS. So deep water moorings, Argo floats, ocean gliders, ocean radars. And I'd like to highlight here two of the animal tracking components of IMOS. So we at the animal tracking facility, we encompass these two components. So one is the animal tagging, and that mostly relates to satellite tracking. And the other component is the acoustic telemetry component. So as John was saying, based on putting a transmitter on an animal and putting a receiver in the water and then getting the detections of the animals like that. But the main take-home message here on this slide is that IMOS is all about observing the ocean, taking measurements out of the ocean, monitoring the oceans around Australia, and then putting all of that information as open access on the Australian Ocean Data Network portal. So all of the information we're funded by the federal government, and all of this information that's generated by IMOS gets given back to the research community and to like consultancy companies, and everyone can benefit from that open access. All the data is free. That data gets published at the AODN portal. So if you guys are interested, you can just jump on that link and have a look at what it looks like. We're working at the moment at like in a new interface for the AODN portal. But that's basically what it looks like. You've got a tab there where you can select the parameter that you're interested, if that's biological, chemical, physical atmosphere, or physical water. And then you can just select the product that you're interested in. You get a little bit of metadata. How was that data collected? What's the temporal scale of that data? And then you get another tab where you can actually do a little bit of a filtering and then download that information as CSV or NetCDF format. So this is the AODN portal. This is like at the top level. So all the IMOS information gets published in the AODN portal. But talking about our animal tracking component, so the acoustic telemetry component, we have our own portal, which is available at a different link down there as well. But again, as I said, most of the information here is open access as well, because again, as funded by the federal government, we really all for open access data. But because a lot of the data included in our database actually come from the research community. When IMOS was first established back in 2006 and 7, but like the animal tracking back in 2008, actually 2013, if I'm not mistaken. People were very scared about sharing their data openly. Just like a big picture here of the numbers that we are at the moment with our database. So at the moment, we've got more than 1,000 receivers in the water from a total of more than 14,000 deployments dating back to 2008. We've got a total of 178 species tracked, more than 13,000 animals, more than 172 million detections across 168 research projects. And again, more than 95% of these data is actually open access. So all people have to do is just create jump on the database, create a profile there, and then you've got the data. So this has really facilitated a lot of collaboration across our Australian community. Yeah, can we please go to the next one? Yeah, so we at IMOS ATF, we actually don't really tag we don't tag anything really. We just service the infrastructure so that people can get their pings and increase the coverage at the national scale. So similar to what John was saying about OTN, we've got this line installation. So we've got a total of 22 installations there that we service once a year, and pretty much in every single state around Australia, but the Northern Territory, and including further south in Tasmania, in Maria Island, which is like a very important region in terms of climate change. So yeah, these are all the installations that we service. And if we could just please go to the next slide, that's kind of like how the workflow of our network, how it works. So we go out in the field, we recover the receivers, and then once a year we go to each of those installations, get the data back, and then upload that to the IMOS database. And then our community, they're tagging the animals, and then they put the metadata into that web app that I showed you guys. And then when there is information from those animals coming from our receivers or from user receivers, they just get notifications that there's new data available. So everything works in a it talks to each other. So basically, people don't really need to further tweak the data either. So basically, when people offload the data from the receivers, they need to process that data using the manufacturer software, and so that they could actually run their own analysis on the data. So even before they open the data itself, they just need to basically drag and drop that data into our database, and the database does all the magic of, oh, these are your animals that got detected, but also these are animals that you have no idea what they are. And because if those tags are in our database, the database does the magic and let people know, oh, look, your animal got detected in this receiver in that location. So really with acoustic telemetry, especially if you're tracking species that move a lot, like sharks, for example, most species of sharks, they travel long distances. So if you've got funding to put 10 receivers in the water, But really, you're going to only have 10 locations where your animal was moving across, right? But if you put your data into the network, that means that actually your study has 1,336 receivers, right? So your 10 plus all of the network. So anywhere around those blue points there, blue and or yellow, where your animals swim through, you're going to get the data. Okay. And all of that stuff happens automatically every time there's new data in. Again, our installations get served once a year, but maybe people offload their own receivers more often. We even recently incorporated some real-time listening stations on the coast of New South Wales, which is a bit misleading, that map, because it does almost look like there's no active IMOS deployments in New South Wales, the NSW there, but we're just under all of those yellow points. Most of those yellow points there on the coast, not the inshore ones, they're these real-time listening stations. So that's a project from the state government that they have these active listening stations to track sharks, and they warn people through a smartphone app if there is any tag shark detected on a beach. So that data is being ingested by our database at the moment as well, even though the data is real time. So every time there is a new detection comes through, we offload that data once a month and feed that into our database. So people tracking other animals. So anything that's really traveling along this coast of New South Wales will get picked up by those receivers. And before they'll need to like get in touch with the project leaders from the state government and go, oh, did you guys pick up any of my animals? Now they don't need to do that anymore. So they just get the automatic email notifications once a month every time we update the database. Yeah, so other than that, so when you get that email notification, that means that there's new data. You can just jump in and download from our web app. But also every 6 months, we run a quality control we just quality control our database, and that also gets published on the AODN portal. So if people are interested really, oh, I just want to know if like movement data from this particular species, you can just jump on the AODN portal, and then you don't need to pre-process the data, because there's a lot of like uncertainty in the actual data that comes out of the receivers. So there's like false detections and things like that, that we just get rid of all of that trash here. And this is just the quality control data set. And again, this is just on the open access data, but again, it's most of the data in our database. But there's also the possibility these days to put embargoes in the data. So if people want, they can just say, look, I want to embargo my data, which will give you a 2-year embargo time. So during those 2 years, then that's accounting from the day that you upload the data. Okay, so you've got 2 years to publish your research, and after those 2 years, the data will go open access. Okay. So just, yeah, if you could just to pull a little bit of our context in the big picture in terms of Australia-wise. So we're funded by NCRIS, which is the National Research Infrastructure for Australia. That's the federal government. And basically, NCRIS, every 5 years, they define country level scale research investment priorities, right? So back in 2021, which was the last one they did, they came up with, next one, please, Talia. So they came up with a recommendation for an environment and climate step change. So basically, these recommendations led to the development of a big project called Coast RI. This Coast RI project is being led by IMOS, but involves a lot of different organizations, research facilities in Australia to better understand the coastal ecosystems around Australia. And before, like IMOS was very focused on the marine environment. Now we're expanding more towards freshwater systems as well. But what that means for IMOS animal tracking facilities, that led to an expansion of our network facilities. So we got more funding to get more equipment. And similar to what John was saying, we also have loan programs. So once a year, we get applications from our Australian community of people interested in borrowing receivers from us. We have, as John said, we have way more receivers sitting in the lab than we can service, and that's really a pain to see those receivers sit in the shelf. So we really want that to be in the water, collecting more data for our community. So if you can just go to the next one, please, Talia. Yeah, this paper was published last year looking at this expansion and what that means. So for Australia, in Queensland, before the coverage of receivers was very patchy, but it's becoming really improved over the last couple of years. And what that means is that we can now cover bigger areas in different habitats. If you just go to the next one, Talia. Yeah, we got more animals detected, and we even got some broad scale movements from species that we haven't recorded before. So for example, I can't give more details, but we got a white shark that was tagged elsewhere in Australia, detected in the Great Barrier Reef after this expansion. So we're really uncovering really interesting movements of these broad, large ranging species. Yeah, so my last topic here is a little bit about engaging local communities. So at IMOS, we really try and promote improving the participation of traditional communities in the work that we do. And one of the key things that we have been seeing is that it's really important to talk to the right people. And that by that I mean that like you got to ensure that you have the correct people in the room, either the decision makers or the knowledge holders from these communities. And it's also very important to identify the expectations of the different traditional owner groups. Sometimes in the same area, you might have multiple traditional owner groups, and the expectations might be that they just want to talk about it, or other groups would like to be involved more actively. So it's very important to actually identify these expectations. Yeah, next one, please. Yeah, and it's also very important to provide updates throughout the project, either that by newsletter or meetings, just a way to give back the knowledge that we're getting out of it and make sure that everyone's on the same page. That's very, very important. And for us, recently, as part of our expansion, we put some receivers in the furthest north point of Australia, and that's a picture of my colleagues, Jared and Sam, standing at the northernmost point of the Australian continent. And the reason why I put this photo here is because this area where we're doing work, we're only allowed to go in there if we take a group of traditional owners with us. So that was really, really interesting to have their opinion and hear from them about so one of the main species to be tracked in this area is saltwater crocodiles. And because saltwater crocodiles are a bit different from all the species that we track, they're mostly like inside of the water, right? The crocs will come out of the water as well. So it was really interesting to hear from them about their knowledge. Oh, the crocs like to go to these areas during this time of the year. So we could actually make our array and decide, okay, so let's put the receivers maybe here and there. So make our decisions based on the traditional knowledge was very important for us. We only put those receivers in the water a couple of months ago, so we don't know about the data yet, but we're really excited about this. And yeah, that'd be all. I'm sorry for the little hiccups there with the internet connection. I just moved to a new house. As you can see, the shelf is empty behind me, and still getting like the Wi-Fi sorted and things like that. But yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much, Yuri. It was also really great. But we need a whole nother session to just ask you guys more questions. So I'm glad this is will be one of our first points of interaction. So more to come.